Hey guys, welcome back. Hey guys, hey. So I wanted to start this off immediately by presenting a political koan. How does America keep up with the colleges of a country that has provided it with like 50% of its doctors and scientists for decades, when our colleges across the board, whether you're left or right, you acknowledge, are failing in a variety of ways? It's just something to ponder because I do not have an answer to that question. So, a lot of people have been talking about things like white genocide recently, and might be a thing if you consider the International Holocaust Museum's deliberate offensive march against people of German descent, feeling that the the trials after uh, World War II at The Hague, and I assume Nuremberg, um, probably not Nuremberg, but The Hague, did not go far enough. That the execution of 1 million Germans did not go far enough. That the um, torturing of captive Germans with depraved methods, such as the smashing of their testicles with hammers, did not go far enough. And by the way, if you ever extract confessions out of people with torture, it is unequivocally accurate that the information that is given to you in ease of the torturee and not in enlightenment of the torturer. And so they will always say whatever they think is necessary to end the torture instead of the accurate truth. And that's why you can't admit things like confessions extracted through torture to the record. Inquisition. Anyways, whoo, that was a nice holiday season. I am fat and happy. I'm very, very, very happy with the celebrations over the holiday, although not everything's perfect. And the camera's not lying. I definitely chunked up about 5 pounds. Lent's gonna start soon, so that'll get me back down. And it's winter right now, so being able to celebrate with my family and eat good food and go to parties with friends. That's definitely something I don't regret, even if I'm a little squishier for it. I love my family. The Normans invented the culture, the British and then American culture, by which the firstborn is the only one who gets inheritance, and everybody after the firstborn, who is born into the family, has to shoot out like a quiverful. They have to shoot out and obtain new property somewhere. And then eventually, the firstborn can take over the parents' property or sell the parents' property and get their own with that money. That is a nasty little alchemical way of getting people to consistently march out and manifest destiny that otherwise would not be necessary. And the way that people just huck their parents into retirement homes, which are like quasi concentration camps in some cases, and it's proven, that system is nasty. And you don't actually see that system a lot with Hispanic families. Even Hispanic families, if they're, not doing drugs and they're sane, have money, they're usually still hanging out with their grandmother and their aunts and uncles and having a good time, and eating good food instead of fast food or, burnt crap from somebody who never learned from an older woman with practice how to properly cook. No hate, but, a girl can only do so much, and a woman, when she tries to play simultaneous roles as a woman and a man, i.e., the girl boss archetype, she ends up very unhappy because it's very hard. Single fathers, they work very, very hard to try and provide, both roles, and oftentimes fall short. People oftentimes try to capture narratives, and I've noticed online people do this to gain their little over socialization points. They want to see their popularity and stuff, even if it's like numbers that don't actually correlate to anything concrete, just entirely abstract. They like to see it go up. It gives them dopamine, feeling like they're moving in the right direction. But you really need to seek out serotonin and have dopamine be the vehicle by which you achieve serotonin. And serotonin is achieved through, having a healthy family life, having a healthy mental health, exercising, eating right, all the good stuff. The genuinely things that we assume are good are aligned with serotonin. Oxytocin, another very important chemical, is aligned with, hugging your family and feeling safe. But dopamine, the thing that our society currently, our modern American society, prioritizes over everything is simply just moving. It's just the chemical by which your brain releases when you detect a favorable change. But, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. A lot of times people end up chasing the dopamine and turn into dope heads. And you can never really catch the dragon of dopamine. It's meant as a vehicle to achieve serotonin. So, don't be over-socialized, don't minimize complexity, and don't play into established lines just so you can get more points on the board. Ultimately, you loose things in this life so you can store up treasures in heaven. That is the goal, and that being good and structuring your life towards the good is how you achieve proper serotonin. Any honest psychiatrist, psychologist will tell you this. There was an innocent Miami mom that was arrested after coming off of a cruise ship, and I will link the story to this down below. And she was arrested for child endangerment despite the fact she never did that. And her police officer, family member, found that out immediately, and it took a very, very long time, 30 days in fact, for Florida to notice that something was off. And they waited and waited and waited for Houston, of course, mentioning Texas and all their involvement in our politics here in Florida, till Houston could come over and pick her up. Broward County has decided that is a reasonable thing to do to a mother as she was about to see her son off to go and deploy in the military, and she didn't get to do that. And what they did to this woman is the same thing they do to people at Guantanamo Bay. They blasted heavy metal music into her cell at night, and they blasted her with cold air to the point where she had to huddle back to back to a complete stranger just for warmth. Like, ooh, I am not a fan of Guantanamo Ron and the things that he's doing in my home state. I am not a fan. And guess what? Despite what people lie, I have never collected welfare in my life. I can criticize Israel. I can criticize DeSantis as much as I want, and I'm happy. And I'll never, ever put myself in a position where I can't. I'll follow the Google rules. But I know for a fact that a lot of people lying, screaming about not being able to say the N-word, they're just BSing. You can do a lot on this platform. There's a lot of, good things that get done through YouTube. So I'm going to link that video down below in the description. Check it out, please. At least the first 15 minutes of it are very enlightening as to how things are in the state and how Texas, Houston, plays into it. So, the New Orleans parade attacker, he stayed at an Airbnb that mysteriously burned down right after this attack. I wonder how that happened. He had been a recent convert to, Salafism or Wahhabism, something like that, only for 6 to 9 months. So where did that come from? I bet there was some evidence of that in that Airbnb. I'd bet money on it, even though I'm not a betting man. Gambling is stupid. Because if you win, you just get, harassed by sick people. Maybe have your knees broken for being a winner. So there's no winning in that game. But I would definitely assume that is what's going on. And apparently this guy was a sergeant, a staff sergeant. He was a JAG officer. He was working desk corps, like DeSantis. He was a JAG officer working desk corps. But he was still a sergeant. And that's shocking. You'd think that people would be able to tell that you're sick in the head. But I have the strongest feeling that when, I've talked about this before on the podcast, when the Afghanistan withdrawal happened, there were people hyperventilating underneath their desks at the Pentagon and screaming and crying. There is no doubt in my mind that sick, twisted things are being done by some of the people that chose not to give up on the black market heroin trade and instead continue to manipulate things behind the scene. I don't think it's a coincidence that all those school shootings happened during the first Trump administration. I think they're deliberately trying to, do horrible, divisive things that make us shoot ourselves in the foot while blaming, scapegoat, frontman, Reagan actor type. But I've been saying this for years, and this is why I voted for Trump. Trump knows now. Trump was meant to be discarded. They tried to get rid of him in multiple different ways, and it didn't work. He was literally Teflon Don. Literally. Not just, fake crap in the court, but literally Teflon Don. And now he knows where the knives came from. And we can only pray that he has the wherewithal and the memory to hold people accountable. Now, Lord knows that he held Mike Pompeo, John Bolton accountable. Hopefully he holds DeSantis accountable. Unfortunately, it looks like Mehmet Oz is coming in, but you know what? Mehmet Oz... the guys at Kiwi Farms chat pranked me real good. They said that Fetterman had died at the hospital. I was just like, oh man, wow. That's surprising, but you know what? People chose debilitation and pain over a dick. And he wasn't actually dead. But yeah, that was a fun little moment there. I was still getting in there. The Fetterman guy, that's a card right there. Holy moly. I was a big fan of Jamal Bowman. And I was really funny. It was really funny to watch him yell at terrible congressmen in the halls. And I enjoyed that a lot. And I enjoyed, supporting him up until the point where he got elected. And then, going good luck. It's a shame that he was replaced, but it's the way things are going. So, JAG officers, look out for them, Some JAG officers, if you're good, please try and coordinate with good people to out the JAG officers that aren't. Or, if you're a Green Beret who doesn't play like James Bond, role play off the side, try to get involved in your local community politics and make things better. Because things are rough, and we're all suffering real bad. In our country, this is a serious problem, and I've correlated this to tactics that have been employed in the past. Murderer police officers are shuffled around the country like the pedophile priests have been shuffled around by the Vatican II Second Ecumenical Council, John Paul II, and further with a little bit of lapse for Benedict XIV, who was an intellectual who cared and wanted to make things better, tried to thread the needle and failed. People think that Francis is a nice guy and all, that he just wants people to be nice and stuff, but he's doing a lot of bad stuff behind the scenes, and with technology as it is, he can have other people handle it for him, and he can just be, as I said, the front man pretending that the organization isn't so bad, and ultimately absorbing a lot of the heat, and like a CEO, taking that scapegoat out of the company while a new person replaces you. That's the entire purpose of a lot of the proposed executive class of this disgusting post-feudal system. I don't know what to call it. And I just wanted to correlate that behavior that our sheriff's offices and the Fraternal Order of Police have instituted, and how that corresponds to the pedophile priests in Catholicism being shuffled around and not being held to account. Archbishop Vigano, or at least he was Archbishop Vigano, one of my favorite guys in Catholicism, he exposed a lot of pedophile priests, and he got excommunicated before it. I was arguing with my last priest, Freed, about this, and he's just like, well, what has he sacrificed? He sacrificed an archbishopric, dude. You should want the pedophile priests to be, have their laundry aired out. You should want that. But Lord only knows what the intent of his heart is. He abandoned our church when I put the pressure on. And we have a priest who is sick with cancer. And our church and our congregation has been suffering a lot. And you can blame me until the cows come home, but God knows. God knows. So corporations have started lowering prices already. I've noticed that. The new year's already rung off to a wonderful new start, except for the horrible, coordinated, from the same rental place terror attacks that happened. Boom, boom. You know, the police didn't even set up barricades in that area. That's a little messed up, especially because 2 of their officers got shot. Come on, guys. What the heck? You know, I wish we could have found out what was in that Airbnb before it burnt down, but it burnt down. Oh, look at that. The corporations weren't going to reward us for obliterating Gaza over these last couple of years. But corporations like Stellantis, who owns Dodge, Ram, Jeep, and Chrysler, they scalped real bad on top of regular inflation. So did McDonald's. They scalped like 300% on top of regular inflation. Subway scalped the least. Subway didn't basically scalp at all. So, you know, cheers to Subway for not scalping us when we were suffering the most. Let's change the topic, get a little bit more cool. Elves and dwarves are a very, very common theme, and I've talked about fantasy a lot, and I've talked about the Dungeons and Dragons theme and how it carries over from ancient mythology, pagan mythology, European mythology. Elves are in many ways the original superego, the angel on your shoulder, and dwarves are the id, or the devil on your shoulder. Now listen, this isn't... there's not like an elf and a dwarf on your shoulders, right? But these are personifications of these archetypes. So the superego of the elves is to literally live above the ground in the trees, and the dwarves live under the ground. And I was thinking about this a lot, and elf or elven in Swedish, which is a very old language, is cognate with of the river. And rivers contain cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria contain bioavailable B12. B12 is only absorbed through your mucous membranes. It is not absorbed readily in the GI tract, and so most people, even like people who eat a lot of meat, this is very, very common with vegans as they get extreme B vitamin deficiencies. But even people who eat a lot of meat, they still have B12 deficiencies because they're not drinking B12 into their mouths or taking a sublingual methylcobalamin tablet. And these elven peoples were peoples of the river whose brains were expanding, and then they found ways of coexisting with the trees. And it's very likely that the dwarves in fantasy developed their hatred of the trees and the elves from the fact that they spread out, very successful, very beautiful, and all that, and they would just, you know, pluck them off from the treetops. And so they learned to destroy the trees, and after being, you know, pushed underground to the point where they were eating lichen, like in the Socratic story, you know, and mushrooms and drinking cave water, they developed this technology, and through this technology, the id, you know, the primal instinct, the instinct drive, the id, overwhelmed the better, higher, angelic senses of the elves and poisoned the rivers with mechanical sludge. He's carried from fantasy into reality. That's what an archetype actually is. And we project the archetypes on the stars, and we anthropomorphize them, as in, like, you know, well, it's been a while since I've studied the stars, but you know what I mean. Even if some of the stars in our sky are indeed dead, the light they produce is still very much a facet of life that echoes into infinity. I've never really liked that whole, oh, so spooky, some of the stars might be dead, and you're seeing, you know, light from the stars that are still traveling, but the star is already dead. So, you know, the light is alive. That's the important part. Inside of stars, there are atoms that are splitting and being sacrificed to give birth to light, heat, and radiation. How that happens, that's for God to understand, but that's how stars work. And for the longest period of time, we wondered. I don't even think we really could conceptualize that good until we actually found out what it looked like when we split an atom. And boy, howdy, did that change a lot. So remember to look for the grand in the little, and the little in the grand. And keep yourself focused. Take care.